Hi, my name is Eva Steiner, and this is my project Psychotherapists Around the Globe. I am interviewing the psychotherapists around the world and asking them the same 8 questions. I am wondering how mental health profession is in their country. Today we are going to. So, before we start, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I am Claudiana Gica. I work and live in Tirana, so I'm a psychotherapist here.
Thank you for doing this interview with me. Can we start with the first question, where you tell me a little bit about your culture? What is some holiday or tradition that your country celebrates? And if your culture would be an emotion, what emotion would it be?
Mm-hmm. So I will start with the first part. I think I will give you some key points of Albanian culture, which is a culture I can say influenced by its history and also by its position in the Balkans.
Mm-hmm.
Albanian culture has this large tradition on music, on dance, on cuisine and other aspects that are transmitted from generation to generation. But I find it important to talk a bit about this, the way people build their relationships. So an important part of the culture is their hospitality.
Mm-hmm.
They are known for welcoming guests and offering them food and drinks, and also they're socializing and gathering in this kind of social gatherings to maintain their bonds and their connection with society. And if I would talk about our holidays, I would say that some important holidays are related with history, also with important events in the history, also religious traditions, of course. Our most important feast or holiday is the Independence Day, which is in November, which is near another holiday, which is called the Flag Day. It represents the first day that the flag was risen. Another holiday that is largely celebrated is New Year's Eve. We like this feast, so it's we gather with families with traditional food or not. We with fireworks, so it's very important and very important celebration. This also we have the religion feasts or holidays, which are since Albania is Muslim by majority, we have Bayrami. It's called Bayrami 8, like Eid al-Fitr, I think. Yes. Also, is Christmas very important because Christians and Orthodox are another important part of the religions in Albania. What is important and interesting here, I think that we are known, another aspect of the Albanian culture is that we are known for this religious tolerance, and we like to celebrate each other's tradition, even if we are not the same religion, for example. So I find this very, very important, and sometimes we brag about this tolerance.
So this social tradition overrides cultural differences in some ways.
Yes, sometimes. Of course, there are, like in every society, there are conflicts, but mostly this is more present. I think the last part of the question
About the emotion.
about emotion. Of course, different emotions come into my mind, but if I would talk especially for what culture can represent on or how people tend to see culture, their culture, I think the emotion would be pride. So we have this saying, "I'm proud to be Albanian," and if I would talk about this emotion in particular, I would say that of course one part of it it's natural, like individual pride, for example, is really a necessary and natural emotion that you can have for yourself, for your identity and your belonging. But as I have seen this emotion in a more collective way, I can say that if I can say it more in a pathological way, I see this as a kind of mechanism, defense mechanism related maybe with this narcissistic investments which sometimes is needed, and this idolized sense of self. I can see this, of course, if we talk about this feeling like an individual feeling, we can say that because of this narcissistic feeling that we have, it's important for us to, because of our insecurities, it's important to manage this self-worth and image of self, even within ourselves, like, and if we talk about culture, within the culture. So sometimes I see it like this kind of feeling of deep sense of pride in our culture.
And behind this, let's say, pathological pride, what emotion or what is behind it? What do you sense is behind it?
Of course, I think there are some important traumatic events, let's say, that our nation or our culture has had in the past. One of them is communist area or wars in the past, or this relationship with other nations, and also our, like, the structure of our society that has been, let's say, split. Because we have been a larger country before, and different parts of the country now belongs to other countries. So I think, but not only this, because maybe this is a bit political, but if we talk about human psychology and their relationship with society and with themselves, I think it's related with this important points in history, like communism, as I said, the oppression there of dictatorship, and what this has left in people and in the society. The isolation makes you with a lot of feelings of inferiority, anxiety. So the sense of pride, idealization of the self sometimes comes as opposed to it.
Yeah.
Here there are a lot of things that comes into my mind when you ask about emotions, and I would say that if I would talk about our current situation, for example, a lot of other emotions can be very important. I don't know if I have time to stay a bit here, like.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I think important now is like there is a lot of insecurities and frustration, and because, as I said, sometimes our process in the culture of the society, in the culture, has made this even conscious or unconscious conflict about, for example, tradition versus modernization, gender roles in families, or other aspects that bring together a lot of conflict. So people now, you can find a lot of insecurity. Sometimes we are hospital, like we are socializing, but also we can be apathic sometimes for what happens around us because of this sense of helplessness. So there are a lot of emotions, and it's a bit difficult to talk only of one emotion that culture has and society has.
Yeah. And how do you become a psychotherapist in Albania, and what is your therapeutic approach?
So my professional journey started with university studies by completing my university degree for psychology, and then this followed by master's degree in clinical psychology. Of course, all these degrees are not sufficient for you to be a psychotherapist in Albania. So I did this specialization 5 years specialization in psychoanalysis. And I can say that even after this specialization, my journey in profession is a continuous journey of studying and because I think it's very important to be engaged, curious, and always learning in the profession. So, and I think for most of the professionals, this is the journey. Of course, we have psychologists who haven't done, for example, specialization and still they do counseling or therapy.
Yeah. And do you need to do a psychology to become a psychotherapist, or can you become directly a psychotherapist?
It depends. For example, in my course, I remember that some of the students were not from a psychological background. They are, for example, they were doctors, like students of medicine, psychiatrists, I think, social workers. So if the specialization, if the school of psychotherapy gives you the opportunity, it's not a must.
And how society looks upon a psychotherapy or any psychological help?
The recent years, I can say this, people are looking more for psychotherapy. I think the social media helps, the mental health awareness. So it's a nice place now for people to search for therapy, because even the services are more, even if it's a new field, let's say, and it has a lot of things to do. So of course there is still a stigma in different people. There is a stigma, for example, people who say that I will work on myself, I don't need help, or the stigma of if you go to a psychologist or a psychotherapist, you are sick and you are like damaged. Also, important part I think is in cities, it's a bit better, like, and people more, but in different areas like smaller cities and villages, it's still very so you cannot find these services, and also people need more awareness.
And is it hard to build a psychotherapy praxis in Albania, or you work under the institution?
There are institutions who offer this, but mostly it's private practices. You know, like everyone builds this private practice, their clinics, or they gathering like in groups and form these associations. But it's not still it's not that structured. For example, we don't have a law in psychotherapy yet. We have a law in psychology, so an institution who regulates it. So you can have a license for being a psychologist, but not a psychotherapist. And the structure that is only by some association, for example, cognitive behavioral association or psychotherapy association, like different kind of schools that build these organizations.
Are there many schools?
There are. I think there are, and now because I see this, maybe some are in the beginning. So there are a lot of organizations who offer different collaboration with schools outside Albania that come here, universities or training centers that meet them in collaboration with Albania. So I think they are, and also modern approaches are coming. But it's new. I think it's new, and it's a beginning for some.
And is there a lot of interest to become a psychotherapist, to go into this direction, into this profession?
Mostly by, I think mostly by people who are interested on being a psychologist, and after they have finished the school are they show interest on getting more specialized. Um, Sometimes because this is an undervalued, I think, profession, and because of the also economical, I don't know, point of view that people have, sometimes they prefer to choose something else that gives them more secure, let's say, future. But recently, since people are searching more for therapy, I think this is a progressive way, and people are getting more interested.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the fourth question. What is your society teaching about child-parent relationship, and whether the values of society also affect how the therapists design the interventions?
I find this question a very complex one.
Yeah.
A lot of things come into my mind, of course, on saying maybe what society teaches, or but I find important what I have been facing in my practice, so I can maybe I can sense something of the culture in my work. I can say, like in any other culture and society, I think Albanian parent-child relationship is shaped by different factors like cultural norms, individual family dynamics, or the expectation that society has in general. And all these factors, I think, shape the child's inner self, sense of self, their attachment to the parent, and also their psychological and emotional development. So for Albanian families, or this kind of relationship in Albania, I can say that there is a big emphasis in family ties. The child is expected to respect the parent, and especially the older members of the family. Parents are perceived as an authority figure. Of course, there are families that are more liberal, or relationships that are more liberal, but mostly, if I talk about generations, like not for the younger generation, but the generation before, I can say that authority is very present. So the parent, especially the father, is an authoritarian figure, and they have these opinions and decisions for their children, and children mostly they follow and respect their parents' advices and the way they see the life. So I can say that parents are very involved in their children's life even after they grow older. As I said, modernization is changing a bit this structure, but I can feel it, like, because the target group that I work are mostly like in their 20s, 30s, 40s, so I can sense even now these patterns, and if I and how I let's say work with this in therapy is by working with the theory of object relation. So here I can sense all this that I said in about the relationship, parent-child relationship. I can sense how patients transfer it in the relationship with the therapist, with me in this case. Sometimes I like to I like to explore, and I find I don't know, Melanie Klein's, for example, theory. She talks about this paranoid schizoid position, and maybe I will take some time to explain what this means and how can I understand this in what society teaches, or what parents expect from their children, but also how this represents then how the patients see themselves and how they build their relationship with their inner objects in this case.
Mm-hmm.
So I mentioned a bit when I talked about pride, about idealization. I find that idealization is really present in these relationships. And by this, I mean, of course, a paranoid schizoid position talks about these anxieties and constellations that we have of mechanism, how we build our relationship with ourselves and others, how we see, how we split, for example, the good parent from the bad parent, the good mother from the bad mother. So we sometimes repress these bad feelings for the parent by idolizing and saving him from our bad feelings. I say our because I find myself even my therapy working with this, where patient, for example, a lot of patients have expressed me that, okay, my parents help me like economically. They are there for me to give me education and opportunities, material opportunities, but they are not there. They were not there emotionally for me. And when these children go to their parent, maybe asking for more, expressing their anger or expressing their hunger, in this case for emotional attachment, they find this parent who doesn't allow them to be angry, or says that you don't complain to me because I gave you everything, or you had everything. So what I'm trying to say here is that there is this split and this conditional way of relating. So the intervention in therapy in this case is exploring this position and maybe go to a more integrated way of relating by bringing anger, bringing negative emotions in a safer way. So we can integrate the bad feelings and say that, okay, the other person loves me, even if I bring them anger, or if I am unsatisfied with them. So also I can say all these cultural aspects has brought these problems on the dependency that children has from their parents. Of course, there is a conflict here. A lot of children wants to be still dependent on their parents and this authority figure, and sometimes this is transferred in the relationship with the therapist. They bring their need for the therapist to guide them, to give them advice, to tell them what to do, or sometimes even to take all the pain away. But and this, on the other hand, you can find even patients who really are afraid of dependency. So we are talking about pathological dependency here, and how it's difficult to build a safer one, healthy one that helps patients and children, in this case with their parents, to be more individuated, separated, and independent.
And if the client would come and told you, hey, I don't want to have a relationship with my parents anymore, how would you react? What would be your approach?
Of course, exploring all the emotions behind it, or all the reasons, being careful on of course not to give personal advices, or because it's important to stay on the experience of the patient, and exploring why is that, and staying in this anger zone, or maybe if it's not only anger, if it's a decision that he made on learning what to do next and how to build good relationships next.
I really like your answers. I can see how you really thought about it, and go dive deep into the culture and answering them from the cultural perspective, and it's so interesting to hear.
Yeah, thank you. But well, I like to work like this every day. Of course, not in this integrated and holistic way of thinking, because when you work patient to patient, you dive in their world, in their individual world. But I find myself reflecting on this and how this is translated in society. And as I said, of course, all these points that I mentioned, you can dive even deeper on thinking why these parents are like this and what affected them, for example. And as I mentioned before, the period of communism maybe has left this has transmitted this generational trauma on being careful, on being authoritarian, and having this difficulty um, being emotionally there with their children.
Yeah. Okay. What are the learned beliefs regarding client-therapist relationship? And can the relationship continue outside the therapy once the therapy process is over?
By learned beliefs, you mean what is expected from?
For example, I don't know, I know that psychoanalysis, like you don't have relationship with the client even when the therapy is over, but some other directions, they say, okay, you can wait half a year and then you can have a relationship with your client, friendship or even romantic relationship.
Yeah, in my case, it's like it's a bit structured, like it's important to maintain the boundaries, and the meeting with the patients with is only in during sessions in therapy, and any other connection is restricted. Of course, in during the sessions we discuss together with the patient what will happen if we I don't know, meet outside randomly, and how the patient is comfortable, like greetings or something else. But it's really restricted, and I think this is because of the importance to keep the integrity of therapy. And also, since I can talk about one of the ways I work is because of transparency in this case. Sometimes when I think about relating outside therapy, I think, I don't know, it's a bit terrible for me, the idea of leaving the transparency, even after sometimes I think still the feelings and the therapeutic relationship dynamics can affect the relationship. I remember when I studied psychology, we discussed a lot about these ethical rules, and in that time it was 2 years, I think, if you want to build even friendship relationship or romantic relationship, it was 2 years. After 2 years of terminating therapy, you can have a relationship. Maybe now it has changed as a rule, but since I'm a bit strict on this, and I haven't had a dilemma till now, I'm okay with the boundaries and the way I believe therapy should work.
And is supervision a must in your country?
Yes, it is. Of course, it's not that regulated in psychotherapy, or I can say it is regulated, because you cannot have a diploma without having various hours of supervision and personal therapy. So I think it's a must. Also, as a psychologist, since it is a law and it is a bit more regulated, you have to have supervision. But I believe that you can find professionals who doesn't have these hours and still work. So, in practice, we have some things to work on. But I think people who really do the work and give this qualitative service, they have the requirements for supervision and personal therapy.
Yeah. And what are the most common complaints that a client comes to therapy for?
Complaints vary. I could say that they can come with very emergent symptoms, but also some are more maybe because of their personal development, they see it in a different way. But some common complaints are related with anxiety, panic attacks, depression. So we have these different symptoms, let's say, low self-esteem, different inhibitions, problems with their body. So as I like to see it, is like, okay, the patient comes and says to me a symptom, and I can see that people are really different on how they bring them, the way they bring them, and the time they have experienced them, and I explore this. So sometimes for me, it's important to see it in a holistic way. So a patient, of course, can bring their symptoms, but there are a lot more there.
And do you feel like, for example, let's take anxiety, do you feel like they are trying to solve it themselves first before they come to you, or do they come right away and want to solve it together with you?
Well, what I have understood is that usually it's the sense of emergency when they feel that like they cannot control it. They come in a point that it's not possible to control it on their own, or to treat it on their own. So this is also for other problems like depression or problems in relationships, when they feel that they cannot handle it alone anymore. But others can come after they have had this reflection of themselves, and still it's not that bad and that strong, the feeling.
Yeah. If you would share one tool, belief, or approach that is a must-have for you as a therapist, what would that be?
So since my approach is a psychoanalytical one, for me it's very important to explore the unconscious dynamics and how they conflicts, and how this impacts the patient's inner life and their life outside, with their relationships, their work, their creativity, etc. So for me it's very important. Sometimes even more important than to give meaning is giving an experience, so the patients have an experience during the session, to feel more and to be more in contact with themselves, because this, as I see it, helps be more in contact with others and having a better enjoying and a more creative life. So mostly it's of course related on how psychoanalysis sees the inner life, and I can say these are my approach, my beliefs.
Great. Thank you for doing this interview with me. I think you went really deep into Albania culture, which I really enjoyed.
Thank you very much for having me. It's really nice being in this way connected with other cultures also. So.
Are you a psychotherapist and want to be a part of my project? Feel free to contact me through my webpage. Thank you for listening.